Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
Phelps with 10 meters left. 3 minutes too good. The crowd roaring. Freeman wins gold.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Physical Performance Show, the show that takes you behind the curtain of the lives of the world's best physical performers. I'm your host, Brad Beer. If it's your first time listening, a big welcome. If you're a return listener, thank you. I trust you'll enjoy this episode and share it around with your fellow peak performers. Listen in as we derive and delve into how top physical performers achieve their success. We'll take a behind-the-curtain look at the highs, the lows, and everything in between on our guest's journey to physical best performance. In today's episode, we have a fireside chat with Tim Slade, V8 race car driving extraordinaire. Today's show is lovingly brought to you by POGO Physio, the physiotherapy practice that helps you discover your best pain-free performance. So let's jump right in. So I'm joined today by Tim Slade, V8 race car driver and guy to keep an eye on in the series. And I've known Tim personally for probably 4 or 5 years, and through the practice and also life and mutual friends of ours. So Tim, it's great to have you along today.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here.
And I believe this is your first podcast.
It is. Much to your surprise. Done lots of, I thought I'd done everything else as far as this stuff's concerned, but haven't done the podcast before.
Well, mate, it's this is a treat. It's my honour. I reckon it'll be the first of many. I would have thought there would have been like motor sport podcasts around.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've done all the other media stuff, TV and radio, and talking to journos and whatever else, but no podcast.
No podcast.
Haven't even listened to one.
Well, mate, we'll have to.
I will now.
Yeah, we'll have to orientate you to the world of podcasts. It's actually what I do when I run. I'm normally listening to podcasts outside of speed sessions and that. We've got to be a bit more focused. But Tim, what's something the world would find interesting about you?
That no one would know.
Yeah. Or your followers in your sport, V8 race car driving, what would they find surprising about Tim Slade behind the scenes?
I don't know. It's not that much other interesting stuff going on that people don't know about. I don't know. I enjoy my fitness. I'm a dog lover. Love the Gold Coast. From Adelaide. I think a lot of people already know that, but I honestly don't know.
What dogs have you got? Tell us about dogs.
We got Max. He's a Hungarian Vizsla.
Hungarian Vizsla?
Yeah.
What is that?
He'd be a good running partner for you. He's fast and runs all day. He's actually from the Pointer group of dogs, so loves his hunting. So if we go for a walk, he's always sneaking up on birds and wants to hunt them down. But no, he's awesome. We've had him about a year and a half now, so it's been a good addition to the family.
So that's Danny and yourself?
Yep.
So family of 3?
Yes, fur baby.
Not including the bikes and the cars.
No.
Yeah, so great. So dog lover. Tim, I'd like to start by asking guests on the show this next question. What's the single greatest physical accomplishment you've ever achieved in your sport?
Gold Coast race, 2014. We do, it's a 2-driver race, and there's 2 300-kilometre races, one on the Saturday, one on the Sunday. And it's October, Gold Coast, starting to get warm, sort of, late 20s, early 30s. And, you're in the car for hour and a half, I think. Each driver. Well, actually, the main driver does a little bit more than the co-driver. And that particular race, my co-driver actually hit some tyres. And when we normally come in for our pit stop, they sort of replenish all the cooling aids that we have in the car. And they couldn't actually get the door open because he'd hit the tyres, so they couldn't fill up the cool box, which I guess circulates cool water through a cool vest that we wear. So that needs to be topped up at a pit stop to keep it cool throughout the race. And if it doesn't get topped up, then basically the fluid that runs around through this top, it basically goes to whatever temperature it is inside the car, which
summertime,
not unusual to be 55, 60 degrees in the car. So that started to get hot. The first time I went to get a drink, the drink straw popped off the drink hose, and then we also have a helmet fan which forces cool air onto our head through the helmet, and that failed as well. So I basically had no cooling inside the car, no drink, and I had to get through this hour and a half stint. And we were actually quite fast that weekend, and we're running third towards the end of the race. And the last half a dozen laps of that were extremely tough just because of the heat. And we sort of had cars on a different strategy behind me on fresher tyres. They stopped a bit later in the race and they were catching me, so I had the pressure of that as well. And being a street circuit, there's no room for error around a place like that. You mess up your braking marker by 5 metres and you're in a concrete wall and your day's over. So the concentration side of things was extremely hard because once the heat starts to get to you, your concentration goes. So had to focus extra hard on that. But given that I'd had such a tough run in the previous few races, I wanted to make sure that we came away from that race with a good result. So I think that's definitely what motivated me to get through that race, and not let all of those factors affect me in the result that I wanted to achieve. So we ended up third and
for the round.
Yeah, for that race we were fourth the next day. But so I think that was actually it's the toughest race I've ever done, just given that all the cooling stuff failed. It was a street circuit, so really high level of concentration. It was a long race, so you needed that concentration for extended period of time. So up there, with a surfboard, the iconic Gold Coast race trophy, which was pretty cool. But because I was so out of it when I got out of the car, all I wanted to do was get in the ice bath, and it's there's not many times where you don't want to get up on the podium, but this time I was
spent,
just cooked, absolutely cooked. And
so how long were you driving at this extreme hot temperature for?
About an hour and a half. So
at this level, wow. Because on a side note, I've been in a car with you, which out at the back of Queensland here, and it was for probably 5 minutes, and I get a sense from being in the car of how hot it could get. Let alone driving around 90 minutes like that. So, and I must say, Tim, I'm still recovering from those few hot laps you gave me. Actually, we'll hook up the video footage at the bottom of the show notes, guys.
But that's actually probably one of the biggest things to get used to once you do jump in a tin top race car, is the heat side of things. So, and it's not really something that you can train for. It's just, it's like, you need the miles and
adaptation.
Yeah. I mean, you can sort of do a bit of heat work in the sauna and stuff, but it still doesn't really replicate exactly what's going on in the car. But, I mean, just to, I guess, give an example of what it's like being in the sauna with, full-length tracksuit on, covering all your skin.
Yep.
And especially things that, if you're hot, you put your hands or your feet under cool water and it feels as though it cools your whole body. But we're covered head to toe, balaclava, fireproof underwear, which is full length, 3-layer suit, gloves, fireproof socks, race boots. So there's basically nothing that touches cool fresh air. So it's like being in that sauna, full length tracksuit, everything covered up. And doing a workout for an hour and a half.
Do guys ever try and replicate? As you said, you can't really replicate it. But do guys ever try and replicate the environment by getting in scenes and that in tracksuits?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I did when I first got into the category back in 2009, and that even came down to, I had an old Hilux ute at the time, and I was living in Melbourne, and during the summer I'd drive around in that with the heaters on flat out, and it had like there was no cloth trim in it. It was all like, I don't know, like rubber mats and the slippery sort of vinyl trim seat.
Yeah.
And so you'd end up getting to where you're going if you're driving home or whatever, if you didn't need to look fresh when you got to wherever you're going.
Just be
It was
wet.
like a pool of sweat, like pretty seedy, but yeah, in the foot area
Is
of
this,
the car.
is this before you connected with Danny? She wouldn't have jumped in the car, would she?
No one would have jumped in the car.
So yeah, wow. Just picturing you doing that. So, mate, there's some of the. That's an interesting thing. People would have known about you, Tim. Was that part of your training involved driving around a hot car?
Yeah,
Trying to.
not so much anymore, but yeah, back when I first got into it.
So that's cool. So, and I imagine that race would have been even more special because it was a Gold Coast crowd, lots of supporters there for you.
Yeah, definitely. A few more friends at that race, and family normally comes up from Adelaide for that race as well, and stays at home. So yeah, it is cool, and it's another home race for me.
Yeah. So Tim, in terms of another home race, you mean away from Adelaide?
Yeah.
'cause you're
I
both.
got Clipsal and then Queensland Raceway, and I mean Gold Coast is good because it's close to home. I ride my bike there, stay in my own bed. It's nice.
You ride your bike to the start line.
Well, the track,
The track.
not the start line.
The track. So I just picturing that. Here's the V8 race car. We're going to talk about your cycling and your triathlon. How did you get started in V8 race car driving? Because from an outsider looking in, my background is triathlon.
Yeah.
I look at the world of elite motorsport, and it's bar the conversations we've had and a few other little tidbits of drivers I've met over the years, I really am quite foreign to how people get started. So share with the listeners, Tim, how did you find your way into a professional V8 race car drive? I imagine most boys dream of that.
Yeah, I mean, Dad was... that's where the interest came from, was Dad. He was, always involved in motor racing, some way, shape or form. He did a little bit of driving, but nothing too serious, and just a few different categories around Sydney. So I guess, growing up at a few racetracks, and I was always on the TV at home, and then I actually had a little Pee Wee 50 motorbike when I was 4, I think. Did a couple of races on that.
On the Pee Wee 50?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And then outgrew that, and then we went and did like a come and try day at a go-kart track, and I guess it was Dad that sort of, I formed an interest, but then it was Dad that sort of pushed me into that direction, and like any young boy, you're not it's not a hassle or it's not something that you don't want to do. Go to the go-kart track as a little kid, it's pretty awesome. So I got a go-kart for my 9th birthday. That was pretty cool, turning over, waking up in the morning, turning over and seeing a go-kart on your bedroom floor.
Was that from Santa, or was that...
No, I think that was from Santa, yeah.
Santa is a good
Oh, mind you, 9 years of age. To know.
You're a pretty cluey guy.
Yeah.
I reckon you might add some insight. So Dad was a big catalyst.
Yep.
Got you the go-kart 9 years of age.
Yep.
Upgraded from the Pee Wee 50.
Yep.
Incidentally, I smiled when you said Pee Wee 50. I broke my jaw on a Pee Wee 50, I think in grade 2 or 3 at school.
Yeah.
And doing a jump, and it landed on me. And that was the end, mate, of my motorsport days in any way, shape or form.
I had a few shunts on the motorbike, especially when the big kids tell you to go jump something that's impossible to jump, and you try and impress them, and you end up smacking straight into it.
Well, that's what I did. I had a head like a mummy bandaged up at school. I remember everyone was looking at me for months because I couldn't get tension band wiring. Anyway, so that's the last I had to do with anything motorised, mate. Went to push bikes from there. So 9 years of age, get your go-kart from Dad. Take us through that. What's the leap to get seated in a V8 race car?
Yeah, so Dad and I travelled the countryside for the next 8 years racing go-karts, state and national championships, and then we moved into Formula Ford. But it was tough. Like, motor racing is tough. It's extremely expensive to do. And, I mean, to be honest, I still look back at my path and think, how the hell did we do it? Because, even when we were in go-karts, we're like, okay, what's the top level of go-karts? And, it's actually what's called CIK, which is like an international formula. So basically, the category CIK, you can go race with that exact same equipment at the World Championships in Europe. So that's the sort of level that it's at.
Yeah, wow.
So we sort of looked at that and thought, yeah, we need to race there, race against the best guys, in the country.
This is you privately inside your house, dad, mum, is that right?
Oh, Dad, yeah.
Dad? No,
yeah.
yeah,
It was just pretty much, Dad and I.
Yep.
And, we thought, well, that costs, X amount of dollars to do. I think, it's probably about 30 grand.
Yep.
And we thought, shit, we don't have that money.
Yep.
How are we going to do it? But, we eventually, after, 2 or 3 years, managed to race at that level. And, we won the junior Australian Championship at that level. And then we moved into Formula Ford. We didn't actually really I think we did 1 year of senior go-karting, but we never really wanted to. We wanted to move straight into Formula Ford, which is your traditional sort of stepping stone after go-kart. So it's, an open wheel race car,
So-
single-seater.
So on that, I just find that fascinating. So your dad and yourself with the team did you say you won the national go-kart championships?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I imagine for every aspiring professional driver is that like a landmark moment on the way to a professional career?
Yes and no. Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything really. I mean, I guess if you go to... money talks. So you can,
Okay.
you can basically...
So you don't have to have a national go-kart championship behind you to get...
No. There's no... there's no qualifying as such
Okay.
like there is in other sports
Got it.
to get to the top.
And was there a fair few families type sacrifices to fund the driving?
Yeah,
boys?
definitely. Dad put in every cent that he possibly could.
Yeah.
And once I got to the stage where I was old enough to work, I always wanted to finish school.
Yep.
So even in the last 2 or 3 years of school, I was working. I grew up in McLaren Vale in South Australia, so big wine region. So a lot of work there. Either in the vineyards or wineries. So I worked in the vineyard. Pruning grapes pruning vines at
I'm
that.
sitting here nodding. That goes to show how much I know about horticulture.
So pruning vines at that time of the year, and then I'd work for one of Dad's mates during harvest on the harvester, and then once I finished school, I actually went and worked in a winery for a year and a half. So basically, every cent I still lived at home. Every cent that I earned, from work, put into the racing as well. But there was a period there in between sort of go-karts. Like my last year of go-karts was 2002, and Dad and I bought an old 92 model Van Diemen Formula Ford, and we did a little bit of racing in that, but not obviously a 92 model car is never going to be anywhere near competitive enough when it's 2003. But the main sort of goal of that was to go and learn some of the tracks before we give it a red hot crack. But to do Formula Ford properly is, upwards of $150,000. So that was definitely wasn't achievable at the time. So basically 2003, 4, 5, we didn't do much racing at all. Yep. We probably did over those 3 years a total of 12, 14 races over 3 years.
This is in like a national series?
Yeah, like in the National Formula Ford series.
Yep.
So we sort of got to the stage where we didn't have the money or the support or the backing to do it. So I had met in those sort of previous few years the guy who runs the best Formula Ford team, and he'd sort of watched me a little bit and knew that. Or he thought that I was doing a pretty good job for the equipment that I was in. So I gave him a call because, Adelaide, there's not really much of a industry for motor racing. It's all sort of happens in Melbourne and Sydney and Queensland. So they're based in Melbourne. And I rang him and said, look, have you got any work? Because I just wanted to get myself in the industry and be seen and then just try and put something together. Because being in Adelaide, like I said, there's not much of an industry, and you're never going to be seen as being out there and trying to put something together. So I moved to Melbourne in 2005 when I was 19 or 20, and actually went and lived with one of Mum's friends over there to start with, and worked for the race team in 2005. I didn't do any racing for the rest of that year, and then I continued working for that team the following year, but we actually, put together a deal with that team to race the National Formula Ford Championship, and we went on to finish second that year. Looking back at it, I guess you can look back at anything, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. But we were definitely we definitely had the speed to win the national championship that year. But I made a few mistakes, more so in the first half of the year in the races, just because I hadn't had the consistency of racing in the past few years. So I was out there probably trying too hard and making silly mistakes. So I think we definitely easily had the speed to win the championship that year, but we were runner up. And then the next 2 years were a pretty tough slog as well in the development series, which is basically like the V8 Supercar series, but they use all the same cars, but it's basically like a stepping stone into the main V8 Supercar series. The first year of that, 2007, which was the year after my Formula Ford year, we did the majority of the championship. We had some good results, but we just again didn't really have the money to do it properly. And then the following year after that, I actually started my own team. Had some really good support from a person in Adelaide who's supported me a lot throughout my career. He bought the car that I raced that year, and I ran it out of being good mates with Jack Perkins for a long time, Larry Perkins' son. Yep. So obviously got to know Larry pretty well, and he owned a big race team at that period of time. Yep. Just before he sold it. Yep. So he sort of allowed me to run my race car out of his workshop, and he gave me a big hand throughout that year as well. So there's been a lot of people that have helped me a lot throughout my career, and I definitely wouldn't be in this position today without those people. So that year was pretty cool actually. Like I ran my own team, so it was a really tough slog. It was just me working on the car during the week, and then I'd employ 2 or 3 people to come away and help us run the car. Dad was still heavily involved, and Mum helped out as well during that year. And we won a race, won a round, and had some other good results. I think we got a podium at the last round as well, and we were actually in the championship, like the highest placed privateer entry without the entry without any sort of big backing or anything from one of the major teams. So that was cool. And then I had the opportunity to join the Paul Morris racing team with they had Super Cheap Auto backing at the time in 2009, and that was my first year into the main V8 Supercar Championship.
So that was, you were how old at that stage, Tim? You were
2009. I was born in 85, so
do the maths on that. We're both looking at each other right in our eyes.
But even that step, we had to put together backing, or I had to put together backing to make that step. So Paul was like, "Yep, I'd like to have you in the team, but we need to come to a bit of a financial agreement." Yep. That's what a lot of people don't realise about motor racing, is that basically to get to the top, you have to pay your way. So even Michael Schumacher, his first drive in Formula One, he would have had to have brought some backing. Yep. So my friend from Adelaide, James Rosenberg, was a big John Deere. We had lots of John Deere dealerships throughout South Australia. He actually bought the car that I raced again that year, and then had some backing from some other people as well, and made it happen. And I guess the year after that was sort of my first year getting paid, and not having to bring financial support. And
wow, so it's
really history.
But it's an incredible amount of steps, and
it is. It's pretty crazy to look back on.
Linear pathway. It's not like, say, the sport of swimming. Qualify, do this time, and you're on the team. Yeah. There's a lot of variables, right?
Yeah, there is for sure. And I guess as a kid, it makes you grow up pretty quick, because you have to get out there and do it yourself.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people respect that, and I think that's actually what's worked in my favour, trying to put it all together as well, is that people were like, well, here's this kid trying to put it all together. He hasn't got a manager, and he's, Dad did help out a lot, but, it wasn't as if he was the one sort of, making the phone calls and doing the deals. I think that actually worked in my favour.
So it makes you grow up, because you're out there, you've got to have the skills of negotiation, self-marketing, all these different things. It's a pretty, mature type athlete at that stage, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it's totally different to the majority of other sports out there.
And, I mean, for example, like Formula Ford, I said, it cost upwards of $150,000 to do. Like, I worked in the workshop that year, and, the money that the team paid me, I'd basically take the minimum out of that to live.
Yep.
And the rest of that I basically put straight back into the bill that the team gave me and Dad. So, and Dad, like I said, he put in every cent that he possibly could, and we took the majority the following year to pay that bill off.
Yep.
But the team was awesome, and I'm still great mates with all the people in that team to date. And like I said, without them allowing us to do that, it's just one of the people that helped us out along the way.
And I guess a lot of people wouldn't. I think it's like anything, you look at the top performers in any sport or any endeavour in life, and there's that illusion of luckiness, like, wow, but they don't see the hours and the steps and the sacrifices made. And I just find that, particularly compelling about this story. There's a lot that's been sacrificed.
Yeah.
And so, it's overnight success. It takes years, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, basically it. Yeah,
which is a good segue, Tim, into this year. So tell us about this year's drive. When I say this year, we're just in 2016 February. So what's happened in the last few months?
Oh, I mean, I'll give you just a brief rundown of how I've sort of ended up in this situation this year. So after the 2009 year, which is my first year in the main championship, I joined Stone Brothers Racing, which are a well-established team. They'd won lots of championships and obviously races, and I raced with them from 2010 until 2012. We had some really good momentum going. 2011 was the year I got my first podiums, and then 2012 we actually finished 5th in the championship. And like the last round that year, I got my first pole position and had a 2nd and a 4th in the 2 races at Sydney at Homebush. So that was awesome. Definitely had some really, really good momentum going. But then that team was actually bought by a new person coming into the sport, which is now Erebus Motorsport, and they wanted to bring the Mercedes-Benz in and run those cars. So that deal all happened pretty late. I still had a year left on my contract, so I didn't really have a choice in the matter. I had to continue on driving there, even though it wasn't, what I essentially signed up for. But, in saying that, everything looked really, really good on paper. But, come the first race of, the following year, which was 2013, the cars were just way underdeveloped. So, like I said, the last round of the previous year, I had a pole position, a 2nd and a 4th. And the first race of the following year, we qualified 3rd last, just because the car was nowhere near where it needed to be. So, motor racing, there's lots of things outside of your control. You could be driving, the best you ever have, but if the equipment's not up to where it needs to be, then you're going to be nowhere near the front. So,
and that must be incredibly for an athlete. That's I think most people that have come in contact with a professional driver or something in motorsport quickly realise just how incredibly fit and athletic you guys are. But for a lot of people, they wouldn't have that understanding, would they?
No. So I mean, it doesn't matter how much effort you put in. Like I said, if the equipment's not on par to where it needs to be, then you're not going to get the results that you deserve. So I mean, we would develop the car throughout the year and ended up getting some reasonable results in the second half of the year, but I decided that that wasn't for me. I didn't want to be in the position where I was constantly developing a car. I was still early days in my career, and maybe after I achieve what I want to achieve in the sport, then I will go to a situation like that where develop a car from the ground up and turn it into a race winning car. But that's not for me at this stage of my career. So decided to move on, and the last couple of years I spent at Walkinshaw Racing in the super cheap auto car again, funnily enough. But same sponsorship but different team. It's all a little bit complicated. I mean, I was part of a 4-car team, so the Walkinshaw Racing team is also the Holden Racing team. So the priority in that team is the 2 red Holden Racing team cars, and I mean we achieved some good results. I think I had 4 or 5 podiums in my time in the past 2 years, but definitely nowhere near consistent enough. I guess there's no hiding that the team didn't really get to where they wanted to with the speed of the cars as well. So as it turned out, that team this year has scaled back from 4 cars to 2 cars, so there wasn't a spot for me or the other car there or the other driver that was there, Lee Holdsworth, this year. So I managed to put together a deal with Brad Jones. He owns a team, Brad Jones Racing, so they run the Freightliner racing car, the BOC sponsored car, and then a third car. So they've had some really good success in the last few years with Bridie and Fabian Coulthard was there in the Freightliner car. That's who I've replaced. He's moved on to DJR Penske team, which is based up here on the coast. So I'm really, really happy that I've ended up in that situation. I guess probably the most exciting thing is that I'm a priority in that team, and it's an awesome opportunity for me.
So watch this space.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we're sitting here in person doing this, and I get a sense of the buoyancy you got about you. You got a spirit of excitement. So
yeah,
awesome, mate.
That's good.
It's really cool. Good to see, because I've for the bit I've had to do with it, I've sensed frustration over the years at times. I've asked you about results and
I guess motor racing is an extremely tough game, and you can't afford to lay down and be kicked. You just got to roll with the punches. And some people, it's definitely tougher for than others, and that's what can make it more frustrating. When you see other guys come in and it's their first year in the sport, and they just happen to jump in a really good car and get good results straight away. I guess it's like anything in life, and doesn't matter whether it's sport, business, life in general. Some people just have a tougher run than others, but it's how you deal with it that matters. So, I've been used to sort of rolling with the punches for a while now. So, I guess I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason too. I think, a bit cliche, but at the end of the day, it makes you a better person, tougher person.
Yeah, so you wouldn't change anything to date?
Oh, I'd definitely like it a bit easier than what it has been, but it is what it is.
So tell us, Tim, what's your morning routine look like?
Well, if I am home, I really enjoy my cycling, and I got a really good bunch of mates that I cycle with. So, generally jump on the bike, and if it's during the week, we ride for, 2 to 3 hours, and then on the weekends we do a sort of 3 hour plus ride. This year, I guess it changes sort of year to year. What I do. I actually did a few triathlons and a half Ironman in Cairns, which I was in here on this table a little bit in the lead up.
Yep.
So I did that in 2014, and then at the moment I'm right into my Pilates. So
cool.
I'm really enjoying the mat and the reformer.
Yep.
I just think it's really, really good for what we do in the car. So that and cycling at the moment, a little bit of running, not too much.
So you've done half,
and a bit of gym work as well.
So and some gym work.
Yeah,
that's all.
But sorry, that's not really a morning routine. The morning routine would be most mornings is on the bike, and then home and get some good fuel and a good coffee. And
what's Tim Slade put in his body for fuel? Not his car.
Well, I sort of I guess I try and keep my eating as clean as possible. I'm not I'm not very strict with any particular diet. I do sort of like the base of a paleo diet, basically because it's a lot of it's non-processed foods, clean. So I try and avoid those bad things. But yeah, I mean a typical breakfast would be. I live just down the road from Biscuit Cafe, so we quite often get their veganola, with a bit of fruit and
so you're one of the regular
the Koyo yogurt.
For non-Gold Coast listeners, Biscuit's a terrific cafe here on the Gold Coast, which if you go and visit through the week, sounds like you'd likely run into Tim Slade.
Yeah, sometimes. That or eggs, avocado, type deal.
So you're fairly clean.
Yeah.
And Tim, so you've run a few. How many half marathons now? Pure hearts. You've done one half Ironman triathlon.
The first one I did was actually back in 2005. I didn't even finish it because I had some dramas going on with one of my legs. So
Yep.
I did I think the first one that I finished was Gold Coast 2011.
Yep.
And then you obviously do that wasn't singled out, but in the half Ironman, there's a half marathon in that. And then I did like my best time I did last year, so I did decent bit of training for that. I wanted to get into like sort of 126 bracket, but fell just short. Did 127 something,
which is outstanding. And I think there's a bit of competitiveness between yourself and your partner Danny. Wasn't there? From memory, what was the outcome there?
Yeah, well, Danny actually had the faster time. So my fastest time actually came in the half Ironman. I did like a 132, and Danny, I think it was it was the same year. It's been, I guess, unfortunate that I've had a race, the race when we race up in Townsville, it clashes with the Gold Coast Marathon for a few years there. It didn't last year, obviously. But, yeah, so she did sub 90. So she actually had the fastest time out of the two of us. So, I definitely wanted to make sure that I beat her. And we managed to get a priority start. Maybe, was that thanks to you? Maybe someone else? I can't remember.
We can thank Tim, the Gold Coast Airport Marathon organisers, for that one.
So we started off the front and Danny went like a bat out of hell, and, I just sort of kept an eye on my watch, and it's so tempting to go hard with everyone else at the start. Well, with the people that are capable, like yourself, of going hard the whole way. Paced myself. I don't think I got past her to about 7 or 8K in. So I was a little bit worried there for a while, but I gave her a little.
What did you say when you passed?
No, I just gave her a little tap on the behind, and she had her earplugs in, and shot off into the distance. But no, she runs really well, and it's a bit of friendly rivalry there.
In-house rivalry. Now you got the dog to throw in the mix too. Right?
Yeah.
And so, what's your favourite training session first of all, Tim?
At the moment, like I said, it's cycling has been the favourite sort of form of fitness that I do for the last few years. So that'd definitely be my favourite form of training. But like I said, sort of flavour of the month is a Pilates.
So what do you like about Pilates?
I just think it's really good for what we do in the car. I guess we're strapped in to a position which basically requires, it all basically stems around your core, your glutes, your lower back. So I just find, and I guess in the car, there's nothing other than, the braking. There's no real brute force or strength that you need. It's something that we've done, most of us, since, an extremely young age. So you develop all those same muscles, whether it's in a go-kart or a V8 Supercar, you're still, pushing the accelerator, pushing the brake and turning the steering wheel. And the go-karts actually have, they're quite a high amount of grip. So, I just find it, time will tell, because I haven't done a race since I've started doing the Pilates stuff, but I think it'll be really good in that, really strengthens those areas that you use a lot of in the car.
Yeah.
And it's in the car, it's all about repetition.
Yep.
Like I said, it's not actual, sheer strength that you need in the car. It's just being able to do that same stuff,
Controlled movement repeatedly.
Yeah, basically.
With as minimal degree of there's maximal movement execution as possible.
Yeah. I mean, for example, like there's in the longer races when the tyres go away, they lose grip, so the car's moving around a little bit more, and our cars are known to have, I guess, more good power but not much grip. So you have to be basically sort of treating the accelerator like you're treading on eggshells, like, so you're being really, really precise with the input on the accelerator. So to do that, with the forces that you're I guess,
because the forces are what, like, you put in a real
it's actually not too much in the V8. Like, if you watch Formula 1, they're up around the 3, 4, 5G mark, whereas the V8 it's like, I think 2.5, something like that. But when you're trying to be so precise with the throttle. You're really sort of switching on your core and your glute in trying to put in, basically millimetre movements. Like sometimes when I'm in that situation, I picture pushing the accelerator with my big toe. Like that's how precise those movements are. So, that's definitely where I think that stuff will come in handy in those longer races.
Well, my first meeting of a driver was when I was just out of school on the Gold Coast here, still training for triathlon, and I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry Perkins. Would that be right?
Well, Larry's based in Melbourne, but he might have been up here for something.
Or might have, maybe I've probably got the name wrong now, but it was one of the guys in the circuit who was doing Pilates up at Runaway Bay here on the Gold Coast. Yeah,
that wouldn't have been Larry.
That wasn't Larry. So I've got the name wrong. It's been over 10 years. But and I remember going, oh, cool. It makes sense. So, mate, I think it'll be a great thing for you.
Yeah.
And Tim, what's the worst training session? What's the one you don't like doing? You least look forward to?
Oh,
got one?
Well, I guess it's fortunate that I can sort of choose my own training, but so I don't particularly do stuff that I don't like very often.
So there's nothing.
Well, actually, when I was training for the for the half marathon, there were some sessions there. My good mate Flappers helped me out with. There were some sessions there that, the interval stuff, and you look at it before, that morning or the night before, and you're like, oh, you just dread it. And then, they hurt. So
some of those Paul McRobert training runs, eh?
Yeah.
Good on you. And Tim, tell me, what's on your bucket list inside your sport and outside your sport?
Inside the sport, I guess I'm no different to anyone else out there. You're out there to win races and win the championship. They're definitely things that I want to tick off before I think about anything else. But I guess still inside the sport, but outside of V8 Supercars, I'd love to do some more GT style racing, which I actually just did the Bathurst 12-hour in a McLaren. So the GT stuff is like your Ferraris, your Porsches, your Audis, the McLarens, Nissan Skyline, so all cars like that. They're faster than a V8 Supercar. They got less power, but more grip. So they're really, really fun, cool cars to drive, and I'd love to do some more races in that, but in particular overseas. So more sort of iconic long distance races. So your Spa 24-hour races. There's a long distance 12-hour or 24-hour in Sepang. So try and get overseas, and not that it'll affect the V8 Supercar stuff. That's always going to be my priority, but if I can fit in some of that stuff around the V8 Supercar calendar, then that'll be happy days. Goals outside of the sport, or bucket list stuff, I don't really have any. It's all about racing.
Man on focus.
And if I achieve the bucket list stuff in racing, then I'm a happy man. Everything else is good.
Cool.
Life's good.
And last question, Tim, you're actually heading off straight after this to a strength training session. So last question, what's the greatest learning you'd pass on to aspiring physical performers? So people that are trying to get the best out of their physical body.
I guess my sport's been a little bit different in that it doesn't necessarily come down to you being in the best physical shape as possible, but I guess I could probably still relate it, and from the story that I've told, it's just been you just, no matter sort of what obstacles come along, you just got to stay positive and roll with those punches, and keep on putting in what you can. Like, I'm a big believer of, and I'm probably a little bit guilty of overanalyzing things, but sort of not letting too many things outside of your control affect what you do. And actually read a good thing the other day. It was stop comparing and do your thing. That was, I actually wrote that down in my phone the other day. So it's like me before a race. You're sort of sitting there thinking about this, thinking about that, and you're like, well, hang on, just go out and do what you do, because you got to believe in yourself and what you do, and no matter whatever else happens, you can't control it. So you just got to to do that. So I don't know if that's good advice or not, but
that's a tweetable, Tim. Stop comparing and start doing.
Yeah,
I like it. Do your thing.
Do your thing.
Do your thing. Well, Tim, mate, conscious you've got off to a training session, so no speeding in driving there, although if there's anyone driving fast on the road, you'd want it to be you because you can control the car. But, mate, thanks so much for your time, and, I know the listeners are going to really enjoy this insight into the world of motorsport. So thanks, mate, and all the best for the year ahead, the series ahead.
Thanks, mate.
We'll be cheering for you.
It was good.
So, there you have it. I trust you enjoyed this episode of the Physical Performance Show. I'd love it if you could jump over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Reviews help enormously in making this show more visible and therefore able to be enjoyed by more peak performers who, just like you, are seeking their physical best. If you've already left a review, a big thank you. If you've got any questions or comments regarding today's show or guest, please shoot them over to my Twitter account. You'll find me at Brad_beer. Copy of the show notes can also be found over at pogophysio.com.au, and while there, make sure you subscribe to our weekly Pogo Press, to my newsletter, which includes various hints and tips on how to get your best physical performance from your body. You'll also get yourself 2 free chapters of my Amazon running and jogging bestseller, You Can Run Pain Free. Until next time, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.